Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Mentor Monday. Mentor Monday is your weekly microdose of encouragement, inspiration, and miracle grow on your potential as a coach. As we always do, it's always important to us to connect with you. That's what this is all about. So if you would do us a huge favor, jump into the chat right now and tell us hello, tell us where you're joining us from and what you're excited about, what you feel life and momentum on. Let me say hello to a few people that I see that are already saying hello to us. I want to say hello to Lori from Dubai. Welcome, Lori. Gina, who's saying hello. Sierra, who's joining us from Ohio. And don't panic, it's organic. Saying hello to everyone. Anybody else that would like to say hello to us, tell us where you're joining us from, what you're excited about today. There's Barry joining us from Arizona. Hey, how's it going, Barry? It's been a while. Good to see you. Bart's joining us from Colorado. Bernie is joining us from New York. And just so you guys know, I have missed you the last couple of weeks. This is our first Mentor Monday of the new year. It's been a few weeks since we did one. I'm more than happy to be back with you guys. And actually, what we're focusing on today, we are doing a live Q&A. So what that really means for us today is that I'm going to take all of your questions off the cuff, any questions that you have that are on the skill side of things, anything that is on the business side of coaching. Really want to be able to spend this time with you to answer any of those questions that you have that are pressing. We try to, if there's any specific program questions, know that I will also answer those as well, but we'll try to do that at the tail end because this isn't just a sales spiel. It's all about helping you get to the next level, especially for a lot of you who are aspiring coaches that want to do this thing. And I know that you've got some questions and maybe some concerns, maybe even some doubts about doing this thing. And we really want to be able to answer any of those things for you. Let me grab a question that was sent in ahead of time, and it's this question right here. Is it reasonable to think that I could start a coaching practice this year? And I really love that question because, you know what? It shows that you're actually thinking about it. You've got your feet a little bit grounded, and, I definitely, there's some people who are a little bit pie in the sky about things and probably think unrealistically, or they don't think about what I would say is the whole planning part of actually building out a coaching practice. I'll say this, what my own experience was as a coach. When I got trained and certified as a coach, I remember when I got my certificate and I was all excited about it. They kind of like waved at me from the door, gave me my certificate, and I was kind of out of everybody's life. Like, the people that I met during that training, the other coaches that I went through training with and everything else, was a great experience as far as that's concerned. I had no idea how to start a business, how to get clients. The only stuff that they gave me a couple of little marketing materials. They mostly gave me a couple of tools and a little bit of marketing materials, and they kind of sent me on my way. And looking back, and I would say this in even further training that I got after that, the marketing materials weren't very good. They were actually very poorly done. And there was pretty much non-existent answers to any questions that I would have had. Mostly, I would say more than anything, more than the questions of even starting a business, was my own insecurity of like, would anybody actually work with me? How do you go meet people? How do you find clients? How do you attract clients? What does a sales process look like? All of those different kinds of things that I didn't have my questions answered. So let me say this from what my own experience was, even without any of that help. It can happen actually rather quickly. It can happen actually really fast to get your training and certification and begin to work with people to be able to build a business and everything else. Because what I will say on the front end, building a coaching practice, there are much more difficult businesses out there to actually create. Actually, there's some businesses that may take a couple of years, maybe even 5 years before you're actually profitable. When you put from everything that you're having to think about with regard to getting a facility and all of the other kinds of things, all of the overhead expenses to even get started. And I know some businesses that are actually profitable businesses, but they incurred a lot of costs and kind of had to get out from under that after the first year or two before they were really making money. When it comes to starting a coaching practice, there's not all of this overhead stuff. As a matter of fact, what I always tell our coaches to do is make sure that you're not doing all of these accessory things and spending money that's not actually necessary for your business. It's not necessary to go and rent an office space. It's not necessary to get a facility. It's not necessary to get a bunch of print material, like designing things and having it printed. As a matter of fact, that's probably the worst expenditures. Like what I usually will see new coaches, they don't know what to invest their money in. And so they'll actually spend a lot of plates, and they're kind of spinning their wheels trying to get started because they don't know the right things to do. And those are just things that'll just kind of like get in the hole as far as that's concerned. So what do you do as far as that's concerned? If you're not going to invest in yourself, with a program or whatever, because I understand people get trained and certified and they don't want to spend a whole lot of money. I had no money to get started as a coach. All the money that I had went into my training. And what I did is I went to a library and I'm like, marketing 101. What do I need to know? What do I need to do to go and meet people, to find clients? I literally had to go and find resources to be able to help me put together a plan. So the first thing that I would say with anything, first of all, know what your ultimate game plan is. Like, what are you going for? What's your goal for? What's your end game for what you're trying to accomplish? For me, it was simply to be a part-time coach. It wasn't even to go full-time. I never had aspirations or dreams or goals even to ever even go full-time. What I was trying to do is to make ends meet. I never thought that I could be a business person, and I never wanted to rely on myself to be the basically find my own clients and to get them to pay me and everything else. It was much easier to work for someone. So I would say for all of you, you really don't have to quit your existing job. Like if you've got a job that's kind of doing it for you. Now I understand what some of the things are with jobs. A lot of times it's not your passion. It's not what you're made for. It's also not paying your bills. It's not getting you to the next level in your life. But you can actually stay in the job that you are right now rather than creating a stressful situation for yourself. Stay in the job where you are right now. Know what your goal is. Is it to be a part-time coach, or is it to make a goal of becoming a full-time coach over the next 6 months or maybe a year or something like that? Start there. Know what your goal is. My goal was just, I wanted to coach people, and I wanted to make X amount of dollars for my first year. And I also wanted to be there, be present for my children and everything else. So I knew what was most important to me in that. When you start with that, then everything kind of works back from there. Know what your 1 year goal is. How much money do you want to make? How much money do you need to make? How many hours can you put towards your business in your first year? So if it's part-time means a lot of different things. I never really had a whole lot of time to be able to put towards my business while I was working full time. So that's the first thing that I would say in terms of it being reasonable to get this thing done. Yeah, because if you get trained and certified, I'd say if you get trained and certified through our program, you're instantly profitable when you get your first client because we're not hanging you up for thousands of dollars. And so that was the case. I remember my first client, they paid me with a check. I learned not to take checks after that, but my first client, I remember he wrote me a check. And when I got in my car, I opened it up and I looked at it and I'm like, I just made more money in 1 hour at 6 o'clock in the morning, because that was the only time that I had to work with clients. It was weird scheduled hours working full time. And I remember when I looked at that check and I was like, I just made more money in an hour than I'm going to make the entire day at my regular job. That's one of the things about this as well, is that if you really can become a 6-figure coach off of just a handful of clients. Again, this isn't rocket science. This is not the hardest business to do, because you don't need facilities. You don't need to rent office space. You should be bringing home 95% of what you make. So why it's such a great business to get into. Get some social media, get a website, but don't go extravagant past that. Treat your website like it's your business card. You can get business cards, but treat it like it's your business card, and nurture relationships with people through that. and allow that, like leverage that. And if you need to make changes to something, you don't have a bunch of print material that you've got to get changed in. So those are some of the things that I would say on the front end. If you need help, and we'll talk about it later because I'm not trying to sell this, but we do have a Jumpstart program that really gives you the A to Z on how to develop your business as a coach. But it's completely reasonable to get a coaching practice up and going really within a couple of months, quite frankly. I mean, what we try to do is that we want you to get your basics in terms of your core competencies of knowing how to actually coach people so that you're a really effective coach. But then we give you the tools and the steps in our Jumpstart program to actually know what are the steps towards building a coaching practice. What I would say more than anything in understanding how it's reasonable to get a coaching practice up and going really within just a few months is that you just need to know what your end game is, and you need to know what your steps are going to be, like actually have committed time every week to meet new people, and not only to meet new people in terms of making initial contact, but that you also every day have some kind of means of nurturing a relationship with them, whether that be through an email list, whether that be through social media, whether that be through a YouTube channel, whether that be going to a networking group because you're trying to be a traditional coach in your local area. All this to say, it did happen for me really fast. I think it's normal for it to go fairly quickly for people, depending on how much time they have. And all of us have different irons in the fire. There's some people who are working a job that's not as demanding. Some people who don't have kids. Some people who aren't married. You know what? When you have things that aren't taking your time, like sometimes people have a demanding full-time job, so it's not just working 40 hours a week, they're working 60 or 70 hours a week. So it's more of you don't need a lot of time, but you do need to be productive. You need to know what you're going to do. You need to know what your outcome is that you're going after, but you need to know what you're going to do. You also need to know when you're going to do it. So creating that space in your life and holding that time sacred. I was one of those working full time, the only income of my family. We were really struggling to get by and having two small kids. And I knew what was most important, that I needed to be there for my family, but I also needed to build this career. So that meant that I had to give up some sleep. It meant that I got up earlier in the morning before my kids were up, went and met with clients really early in the morning on Saturdays, met with them in convenient spaces that were like a coffee shop in the neighborhood of where we lived and those kinds of things. That way it wasn't taking away from me and my family. But I also knew that, hey, I know what it's going to take in terms of hours and what are the steps that I need. And it's setting a plan and it's honoring those kinds of things. So it's absolutely realistic. And I think that it can actually be done. I'd say that the people who are in our Jumpstart program, I think on average, now everybody's a little bit different. And if any Jumpstarters are listening to me and you're like, oh, that's not me, it's okay. Because I'm saying, what is an average? Probably 4 to 5 months is usually from when somebody initially starts their training, or I should say completes their training, not starts their training, completes their certification. That usually by about that point, unless they had crazy demanding job and a lot of other things, that's usually the timeline that I see most people doing it on. So absolutely realistic. Have I seen some people do it sooner? Absolutely. Have I seen some people do it later? Absolutely. But I'd still say that probably around like 4 months is, generally speaking, what I see people trying to accomplish an initial launch and those kinds of things. And of course, they're always making adjustments after that. So hopefully that was a decent answer to that question. Let's see. What do we have over here? Can you suggest a place to meet clients for those of us that don't have an office? I don't want to use my home. Totally agree with that. Now, I don't know what kind of an area that you live in terms of how large of the city that you live in, if it's urban or any of those things. One thing that I will tell all of you, I'm going to get all this stuff out of my pocket. Like, what is going on this morning? I got mints and I was running a lot of errands and had some appointments this morning. I'm like, I can't put my hands in my pockets. So depending on where you live, here's one thing that's true for every one of you. No matter where you live, there is a place where people gather. There is a place where people meet. When I started out as a coach, I just used coffee shops. So Starbucks was my friend, as well as a couple of other coffee places that were in the San Diego area that were kind of like a meeting space, or what I would call a third place for me and my clients. One thing is for certain, I know a lot of coaches think starting out that working with clients that you have to have confidentiality at the level of a counselor or a therapist, but you really don't need that. We're not dealing with trauma and these deep healing issues and everything else. What we are trying to do is help people create the future that they actually want. Doesn't mean that everybody's got their ducks in a row. Doesn't mean that people don't have things that are in the way. But most of the conversations that we can have can be done in a semi-private place that is also in public. And so, at a Starbucks, there's just enough room. And I would say, definitely in California, if you're indoors, you're probably going to have a table 6 feet away from some other table or whatever, just like generally speaking. But in any coffee place or a cafe or something like that, you have a space that is just confidential enough for the types of conversations that we're actually having with our clients. So there's those things. If you're in a bigger city, you might find co-working space that you can rent hourly or just have a membership and be able to utilize it. I don't think that that's necessary. I think that any place that is inspiring for you and your client can be great. Weather permitting, you can coach people outdoors. I've done that. Matter of fact, where we live, we're just a few miles away from the ocean, and the cliffs are, there's a few different places where the cliffs overlook the ocean, and I literally have chairs in my vehicle where I will bring them and we will put them out, and it's like our own little private office, only it's the best view in the entire area. So what I want you guys to understand is that we can be as creative as we want to be. You don't have to be inside the box when it comes to working with clients or any of those things. I actually ask them, what are the kinds of places that you are most inspired? Libraries have neat, some libraries, some are more attractive than others. Sometimes can be really inspirational, artistic spaces. You might find some of those that aren't the traditional meeting areas around where you live. The important thing is that the client's comfortable and you're comfortable, and you can hear one another, and there's not a lot of distraction that's going on in there. In San Diego, once if you want to say, outgrew the coffee places and I had some money to actually invest in my clients, I just joined a business club. And so we had a business club downtown that was actually in the highest building, like the tallest building, that overlooked the city. So I used that as a touchdown spot to be able to meet clients. It was kind of like a middle place as far as that's concerned. And that way it just they felt like they were invested in. They had a great view everywhere that they looked. And that was just a great space, but it was only semi-private. I mean, they did have private spaces, and I will tell you guys, sometimes you might be working with clients who do have more personal matters, or they might be working on something that's proprietary. Like when I do executive and team performance coaching, I keep these things that I know about companies and about business owners and about leaders to myself. So it might be that you're talking to them about things that they don't want to go out and be common knowledge or anything else. And so they don't want people eavesdropping on a conversation possibly or whatever. Any place is a great place as long as you're comfortable, as long as that you guys can see each other. And again, that it's not a distracting kind of place. So think creatively on that. Doesn't have to cost any money. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. A coffee shop works perfectly as far as that's concerned. I really don't like personally, and this is me, I don't really enjoy the clinical looking approach of having someone come to my office. I don't really like the clinical, because it feels kind of sterile and it feels like that, right? Kind of feels like counseling or therapy. So I'm not a real big fan of that. Also not a real fan of coaching people inside of their office spaces or in their workspaces, because when you go there, there's typically distraction that's and noise that just goes along with the workplace. So finding a neutral spot, I do think, is really important and something that's really inspiring and helpful for both of you. Let's look. Let me see if I see any other questions that are in here. Cynthia, let me say hello to Cynthia. Tammy from Tuscaloosa. Hey, Fami. Jen, welcome. Jen says, I'm a lifestyle coach, so office space and everything is not necessary. That's awesome. Victor from South Africa. Oh, it's Iran in the house. Awesome. So here's a question. How much can you charge as a newly certified coach? It's a great question. I don't want to try to, I'm not being evasive. There is a free workshop, and it's truly free, that we do on Tuesdays, and it's called how to set coaching fees like a six-figure coach. And so we actually have a whole workshop on that that's available tomorrow. So I would encourage you, if you go on our website, ilifecoachtraining.com, you'll actually see the link on there, and that you can actually enroll in that and be a part of it. And so you'll learn all of the steps to crafting your pricing as far as that's concerned. Here's what I will say. There is not a beginner price range for a coach. There's really not. There's a lot of different reasons why I would say that, but there is not a going rate for coaches. We've got a lot of different things that impact how we charge fees. And, depending on what country that you live in, maybe what region of the country that you live in, and some of those kinds of things, the people that you're serving, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't really think that there's a fee range. I will tell you that the average first-year certified coach in the United States is making between $118 to $128 per session. But you need to know why you charge what you charge. And it's not based on being a rookie or a veteran coach at all. It's all based on value that you bring and the benefit that you bring in someone's life. I like to use examples usually with like mainstream products that everybody's kind of aware of. Like if you're a person who likes Nike tennis shoes, and a lot of people do, and they pay an extraordinary amount for a brand, they're not really paying for workmanship, because if they were paying for workmanship, then we all know, if we've lived in the United States more than a day, we know how things kind of go when it comes to product creation, that they are made in a factory overseas, and that people who are actually manufacturing them are getting paid pennies on the dollar. And I'm not trying to make a social justice kind of thing or anything. Like, I'm not trying to make a statement about that. What we have to understand is that we're buying a brand, that Nike tells us what their value is, and we have to agree if we see the same value in it. That's really what it comes down to. That means that as a coach, I need to have a high value for myself and a high self-worth with regard to my time and all of those other things. I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday who works in the service industry, and they had worked really hard to be able to get this job. And part of their job in the service industry, they were talking about, I like these aspects of my job, but I never like working the drive-through counter for the coffee over there, because it's specifically like it's a particular coffee brand that's really well known. And they were talking about how badly they typically are treated, specifically by the people who go through drive-through. The people who come in that are regulars have a relationship with them, but the people who are driving through, granted, they don't have their coffee yet and some of those other things that we might give them an excuse. But the reality is because of the price point being what it is, it seems very okay for those people to go through a drive-through and mistreat someone that they do not see when they're talking to a speaker, or when they see them at the window, because the price point is what it is. A lot of times it actually determines the kind of behavior that people have, whether or not they value a human being. Take those same people and put them in a fancy restaurant, they will usually behave themselves differently. Like if wait staff comes to them and they have something wrong with their food, they won't, like, this person is telling me how, has my coffee just been sitting there? And they're like, no, actually, we just made it. And they literally took the thing apart and were like analyzing it and gave them a dirty look and went on. And it's like, where did that come from? Would that same person have behaved in that way in a fancy restaurant? And I'd argue that in most cases, if the price point is higher, someone actually feels a little bit embarrassed to be like, hey, you know what? I'm sorry to bother you with this, but this is just off just a little bit, and they don't want to call attention to themselves. It's like the opposite kind of behavior. Why? Because the price point is higher, because people value the individual who's working with them and actually what they're getting. All of this to say that when someone is paying a very low rate for coaching, they usually don't get as much of the benefit. That's what I see typically. Now, can I find some cases where that's not true? Probably somewhere. Like there's always going to be there's a bell curve, right? So there's always going to be some people on any end of the spectrum, right? When it comes to that. But here's what I see. Coaches that charge low fees don't get as good of results for their clients. And it's all about skin in the game. It's all about the value that person sees in that coach. And it's also the value that individual puts in the time. Because if you have more skin in the game, you actually invest at a much higher level. It's just one of those things. The things that we value the most, we spend the most on, we treat it in a certain way. Just the way that we're wired as human beings, right? So why am I saying all of this? Because you can go to my workshop and everything else. One of the things that I want our coaches to get more than anything is that we've got to know what our value and worth is. And that might be $50 an hour, but it might be $500 an hour as you're just starting out as a coach. I'm not the person to tell you what your value is supposed to be. What I'm supposed to do is I'm supposed to encourage you to know your value and worth, because you train the world on how to treat you. And I'll say this, it's much easier to find 5 people who will pay premium for your services than 30 people who will pay you for discounted services. And I'll say this again, it's going to be easier for you to find 5 people. We have 7.5 billion people on the planet. Find 5 people who will pay you $200 an hour than it will be to find 30 to pay you $30 an hour. I know that sounds illogical, but if you actually sit around and you think about it, you'll probably agree with me at a certain point, because I've watched it and working with coaches for a decade, training them and helping them, and then in my own experience, this is what I always see is true. So set a rate that is worthy of you and can also attract the right kinds of people who will actually put the work in. Usually when somebody gets a significant discount from a coach, they usually at a certain point have a lack of follow through and some of those other kinds of things. Meanwhile, the person who is paying your full rate is the person who's showing up, putting in all of the work and everything else. And again, I've seen this story so many times. It's why it's worth repeating. And it's just, I wish it was different. I wish that when we gave people discounts or we had lower rates or whatever, that turned into greater results and more clients, but it actually doesn't. Because I think that most cases, not every case, but a lot of cases when coaches are setting lower rates, usually has to do with their own worth and value in some cases, or maybe fear of scarcity, that there's not going to be enough clients for them. And again, you having lower fees does not translate into more clients numerically. But I'm going to encourage you again, check out that workshop that we have free on our website, and it's going to answer a lot of those questions for you. Is this a question? Can apply coaching to my rehab clients as a part of their recovery? I guess this is a question. Absolutely. One of the things that I've seen a lot of people come to get trained and certified as coaches is that they're actually trying to have an add-on to what they're already doing. And a lot of times it makes immediate sense. Like we've had some people who were into the fitness world, or they were personal trainers, but they also understood that there is an aspect that is missing, and some of the motivation and some of the belief systems and some of those things. And if people could kind of get victory in those things in their life, then it would bring this other area into alignment. It would really support it. So absolutely, I would say that I don't believe that coaching in and of itself was designed for healing in terms of, and again, you're saying rehab, and I don't know, that can mean a lot of things. If it's recovery, like trauma, some kind of a physical, maybe it's physical, maybe somebody's actually going through rehabilitation, like they had an injury or whatever. I think that coaching's an additional support mechanism that can absolutely be utilized. But I don't think that the goal of coaching is to find people who are hurting and trying to get them into wholeness. But I do believe it is an additional support tool, relationship, that if it's partnered with other things, like we've had some coaches who have worked with counselors and therapists who are going after the healing portions in people, and they were a support mechanism to try to help them when they're ready to get to the next level, or they're partnering because they're not doing the healing work in someone. They're not dealing with the trauma portion, but a counselor or a therapist in that case could look at this person and say, oh, they could really benefit from this, right? So that's the way that I really look at it. But again, for most of you who are thinking about coaching and everything, I think that coaching mostly exists really for people who are in a high state of wholeness in their life. No one has all their ducks in a row. Everybody who's sitting here listening right now, every one of us have trauma. Every one of us have hurts. Every one of us have some form of brokenness or bad beliefs and some of those other things. It doesn't mean that we can't be coached. It's when we're working with people who should not be trying to move forward in their life. Let's say that somebody was in a relationship and they have trauma in their life and they are always in codependent relationships, and maybe they shouldn't be starting a new relationship immediately. Maybe they should be working on those things before trying to move forward in their life. So sometimes people have things in their life that it's like, hey, you should not be moving forward in your life right now until you get healed and you get well in this particular area. So I would still say 85, 90% of people are coachable. And then there's some people who they need to get to wholeness first before they start trying to move forward. That there's enough trauma, there's enough pain that would inhibit them being able to make healthy decisions or even see the world in a healthy way to be able to move forward. So, and we leave those to the professionals who are counselors and therapists. Let's see. How can I make myself stand out from other coaches? First of all, you don't worry about what other coaches are doing. That's the first thing that I would say. A lot of coaches look around at what other coaches are doing, and I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to just kind of get a sense in terms of inspiration of like, hey, what tools is somebody using? What kind of design motif is somebody using on their website or whatever? But as a rule, I always tell our coaches, there is only one of you. So when you compare coaches, we can't really compare apples to apples. It really is apples to oranges or pears or watermelon or whatever. Like there's only one you. If you want to stand out, then two things that I would suggest right on the front end. One is that you have to wrap your coaching practice around you as an individual. What does that look? What is your unique expression? What is your unique design? What is your unique bent? What is your unique taste, take? What is your unique voice? And the average coach is saying things that every other coach is saying out there. Want you to be your best you. And that doesn't make sense to anyone. Who's thinking every day about trying to become their best you? How can I become the best me or something like that? How can I become the boldest version of myself or whatever? Most people are not who's saying that? Coaches are saying that. But most coaches who are doing marketing and advertising do a very poor job of it because they don't know how to explain what coaching is to anyone, which you can't because no one understands what coaching is until they've experienced it. So what a lot of coaches will say is, well, it's not like counseling and therapy, except now you mentioned counseling and therapy, so someone's focus is on that. What I try to do is I try to help you get a picture of what you want. It's all of this stuff that, again, is intangible. So if you want to attract clients to yourself, choose a specific niche. Make your coaching around you. How are you unique? What's your unique voice? Don't just steal other people's stuff. Actually be unique in there. What makes you you? Who are the people you're passionate about working with? What are the specific problems that you love helping people solve? That's what separates you from everyone else. Second thing, choose a niche. What's a niche? It's a certain group of people, and it's a solution that you're helping people accomplish in their life. So when somebody just generally says that I am a wellness coach, It's really wellness is pretty much an industry. If somebody says I'm a business coach, that's an industry. That's not really a niche. So it doesn't really help. Like what your niche should do is it should help people understand how you help. And so you don't have to sell coaching because no one understands it. Sell the solution to a specific problem. You've got to dial in to a specific problem, the most common pain point that your ideal client has. And that's how you stand out. Because it's kind of like this. If let's just say, and I'm just using this as an example, you wanted to help with social media and specifically with Instagram. If you saw two coaches here, and I want you guys to understand what the difference between a non-specific niche and a specific niche is. If you, we said two coaches are standing here. One coach is saying, well, I'm a business coach, or maybe I'm a marketing coach. Let's say that I'm that. But this other person says that I am a digital marketing coach. Who's going to get the most visibility? Who's going to immediately kind of resonate with where this person is? Business coach might at first, until they realize that there's somebody who actually does something with marketing. But if they found out their specific problem, which I say, let's say that they were working on Instagram and they're just trying to grow their followers. This third person says, I'm a digital marketing coach. I guarantee you that's connected to the problem and solution. What if somebody says, no, I am I'm not just a digital marketing coach. What if I said I am a social media coach? That person's going to get, it's more specific, right? So it's going to attract more people to that. Business coach is over here being a generalist. So is the marketing coach. But this person who's a social media coach is is attracting people. What if somebody says, I am an Instagram marketing coach? What if somebody says, I'm an Instagram growth coach? I help people grow their followers. Now that person sounds like, oh, well, that's very risky. No, what they actually did is that they set themselves apart from everybody else. And that's what attracted people to them. Poor business coach is over here being a generalist. And now they're working with people who have general problems. But as soon as someone knows what their pain point is, or the thing that they really, really want, they're looking for an answer to that solution. They don't care if coaching, as we call it, is the solution. They just want a solution. They want to believe that that person has a solution. So that's how you, in the simplest sense that I can give you, how someone can attract people to them. And it makes all the other coaches irrelevant. Because I will say this, every other coach in your city, in your region is irrelevant. You know why? Because they're looking for you, or they're looking for someone like them. And I'm not trying to be like anyone else. There's a specific type of client that I work really well with, and I'm not a good fit for everybody. And there's 7.5 billion people on the planet. None of us are going to starve. There's not that many coaches. Even if we had millions of coaches on the planet, there's still not enough people to work with. And depending on how you guys run your coaching, run your business, most of you can't really work with more than like 30 people at any given time, unless you figure out a way to really scale your business and you do group coaching and you do some stuff through online programs and everything else. You're going to top out pretty quickly. And so what you're going to find is that there's more than enough people out there. Just be very specific about what it is that you do and how you help people. That's what the focus has got to be about, not on coaching. Focus has got to be on them, so that when they look at your stuff, they know that you are for them. They also need to be able to look at yourself and see that you are talking about the problem that they have and that you're offering a solution to that problem. And that's how we set ourselves apart from everybody else who's out there. Let me pay the bills just really quickly, and then I'm going to come back and answer some more questions. For those of you who have not gotten trained and certified as a coach, let me share with you how we've been helping so many coaches, and we've actually helped over 20,000 coaches at this point. We're the largest life coach training program in North America. But years ago, we decided that we were not going to only be in the business of training and certification, like so many of our colleagues really were. I found out the hard way when I got trained and certified as a coach that I had no idea what it took to actually get a client. And so initially, when we went fully online with our school, we were helping a lot of coaches, but I always, like, for me, I'm not in this game just to give somebody the training, because the training, when you take an exam and you do some of those kinds of things, that's a great portion. But honestly, building a coaching practice is about 10% what you got trained for. It's about 90% business. It's the, what are you doing on a daily basis, and what is your strategy for actually acquiring clients and everything else? So what we did in our Jumpstart program is that we rolled literally every program that we have together under the Jumpstart umbrella, so that you can get trained and certified as a coach, get your certificate. We also offer hosting of your credential that you have in credential ID lookup. We have all of that stuff online. Matter of fact, when you get trained and certified as a coach, you instantly get your credential ID and you have access to that. We also give you a free listing on lifecoachmatch.com. It's our online directory. It's normally $75 a year. You get that free. But our Jumpstart program gives you about 40 core modules. Now, we have literally hundreds of hours of training inside of Jumpstart, from everything that's really the A to Z on how do you build your business. How do you discover your target market? How do you discover your niche? How do you attract clients? What's the strategy that you're going to use, whether you're going to be a traditional coach, a hybrid coach, or a fully online coach? How are you going to actually acquire clients? What would be your daily plan? What would be your daily work? How do you write marketing messaging? I mean, like, we literally have an entire program inside of Jumpstart. It's called Brand Camp. It's inside your student dashboard when you enroll, and it's about 12 hours just on marketing training. How do you really define that niche, and how do you actually create a marketing brand? How do you wireframe a website? What should that look like? What colors should you use? How do you optimize your website for search engines? How do you write an email? How do you write a sales page? We show you examples, and we show you how to do all of those things step by step. Every bit of this is actually in our Jumpstart program, and every program that we have, additional course, is actually under this subscription-based program. It's $97 a month with a 3-month minimum commitment. You can cancel anytime after those 3 months are over with. There's no one who's offering something like this. It's literally worth thousands of dollars a month. We want to make it accessible and available for you if you're willing to actually go through the material and put in the work. We supplement everything that we're doing here every Wednesday with a group coaching call. So what I do during these calls, kind of a little bit like today, where I'll answer any pressing questions that anyone has. We also do a little bit more training during that time. But also, if anybody has anything that they're working on, their website, any kind of logos, anything that they're developing that they want feedback on, I actually will do that in a live format. I'll pull out the red pen. This board does a lot of fancy magic, and we'll open up people's websites and we'll make recommendations of where things need to go, what needs to be improved, and everything else. Why? Because our end game is for you to be as effective as you possibly can be. And after those 3 months are over with, you can actually stick around with us, or you can cancel anytime. It's a one click inside of your student dashboard. We'd love to have you as a part of that. We want to be a part of your success for this year. And so any way that we can walk that out, we're going to continue being here. But I'm going to encourage you. We're already almost 2 weeks into this year already. Usually by January 17th, most goals are over with. Like, people are done. They're not working on stuff anymore, unless they found a coach to work with and they found some accountability in their life. If this is something that's actually in your heart to do it, then I'm going to encourage you not to procrastinate. Click that link inside of the description. You can get enrolled in about 90 seconds, and we can start working together. Let me see if there's any other questions that we have in here. Let's see. There's Gina. What's wrong with Zoom? I don't think that there's anything wrong with Zoom, but I don't know. I'm not really sure what that question is. Actually, really, I like Zoom, so I don't know. Saudi Arabia's in the house, and here's Jennifer joining us from California. I love your view on value. Thank you. You are welcome. Awesome. How should a non-certified life coach charge? I think exactly the exact same thing that I was talking about before. That's what I would encourage. I really think of, here's the way that, because the hard answer on that is, when somebody says a non-certified life coach, how much should they charge? From my standpoint, just as a teacher, trainer, and as a coach myself, I'm leery of people who have not gotten trained and certified only because I don't know what they're offering unless I see them with their clients. Because I'll give you an example. A few years ago, San Diego area, there was a particular individual that I knew, really talented individual. They were working kind of like in this business realm of things. And then they decided they were going to become a coach. Now, I don't know if they got trained and certified as a coach at all. I have no idea because I never asked. I know that they were a very talented individual. And they started doing promos for a coaching event that they were doing over the course of a weekend. Now, the interesting thing was, so there's all these people who paid good money, hundreds of dollars, to be a part of a weekend event, and that individual didn't coach a single person. Matter of fact, nothing was geared around coaching at all. It was around motivational speaking. But he was using the trendy word of coach. And my guess is it's maybe, some coaches might do that to try to upsell people to one-on-one coaching. I don't know what his end game was. I just knew that there was a lot of people paying money and they weren't actually getting coached. Now, did they know? They probably walked out of there inspired. I'm not against that. But what he was doing and what I continued to see in what he was doing in his coaching practice wasn't really coaching. He was charging a lot of money for it. And some people liked it. He's a likable individual and everything else. He just wasn't coaching people. And so I'm careful around that because you know what? If somebody is wanting to get in the business, I think that they should just invest in themselves in some kind of way. I'm not saying that you got to go and get hundreds of hours of training or whatever, but invest to the point that, you know what, you can be really, really good at what you do more than it is in trying to market yourself. Like, I'm not sitting around saying get trained and certified just to simply market yourself, though you can leverage that in your marketing and everything else that you've actually invested in yourself. But the whole goal behind getting trained and certified is that you can be the best coach that you can be. And if you're getting results for people, then that actually opens the door that much more to your business. So hopefully that's helpful. Oh, the question is, what's wrong with meeting clients on Zoom? Do it. Like, if they're comfortable doing that, go for it. And matter of fact, that means that all of you could coach people all over the world from the comfort of your home for next to nothing. And that's amazing. When I started out as a coach, I was just a traditional coach, and I wasn't doing any kind of virtual coaching. Part of it is I think that I thought that the value that I was bringing to people, that I brought more value when I was with them one-on-one. But actually what happened was, and this was, I don't know if Zoom existed. We had some other things, other programs that we used, but sometimes people didn't have access to those things. Not everybody had a smartphone back then and everything else. And so I did coach some people by phone. I remember coaching people by Skype and stuff like that. And what I found is that whether you're coaching someone by phone or even over Zoom or whatever, it's just as effective as coaching someone in person. So it's absolutely great to coach people in that way. Just make sure you got a great microphone. That's the biggest thing. And that you have a good internet connection when you do it, because that's the only thing that can be lost in translation sometimes, is if there's an echo and there's some of those difficulties. Technical difficulties still happen to the best of us, but that's what I would recommend as far as that's concerned. Yolanda says, are coaches bound by the same laws? Clients confess or say something to illegal activities or intentions? No, we're not. We're not a reporter as far as that's concerned. What I do think that as a coach, you should. Now, I will say that there's things in my heart, and I tell people ahead of time before I work with them, of what does confidentiality look like. And so if there's illegal activities and stuff like that, like I tell people on the front end, I have my own values. Not everybody has the same values as me. Not everybody has the same morals as me and everything else. I understand that. But I can't coach someone that I know is doing illegal activity or hurting someone or hurting themselves and some of those other things. And so they know on the front end the kinds of things that I will report, or that if that's going on, then I can't possibly coach you because it's it's a morality issue for me, and I would really struggle with it. And I need to really believe in the person that I'm working with. And if I think that they're doing something like illegal or wrong or whatever, this is beyond what's even just legal. There's some things that you guys are going to find morally reprehensible with some people that is not necessarily illegal in the way that they handle money and the way that they deal with people and a lot of those things. And so as a coach, you just need to know those things for yourself, and you need to actually discuss that before you work with people. So hopefully that's helpful. Let's see. Come on. Once my client has finished his or her drug rehab and is ready to move on, can I apply coaching to the best of them? Absolutely. I think it would be that would be a great use. Blessed and favored from Georgia. Welcome. Sierra says, already got my certificate. I just need to learn about the marketing part. So if doing the Jumpstart will help with my marketing, or do you have another program that just deals with marketing? Jumpstart really deals with everything. And so we did for a short time just offer Brand Camp that was simply on the marketing end as a one-off, but we actually put it underneath Jumpstart so that you have access to every one of these materials immediately when you enroll. So that's the important thing for everyone to know as well, that when you enroll, you get access to everything, and it's self-paced, so you can actually work through the material. If you're aggressive and you want to get through things and work on stuff, the tools and everything are right there for you to be able to do that. If you're a little bit more deliberative or whatever, then that's completely fine as well. Both of those work with those personalities. So just want to encourage that. Can we work with clients that suffer from mild forms of depression? I think so, because it's pretty common, right? And depression comes from a lot of different things. Depression's not always a biological issue. Like, it's not always like I have a chemical imbalance. You know that you can have depression if you have strong values in your life and for some reason you're not able to live them. It can actually feel like depression, like the emotions and some of those things. So I think that depression is so common that I don't see it as being an issue. As a matter of fact, what you'll find with a lot of clients is that once they get what's most important in alignment and they start moving towards things, then depression doesn't really have a place to land anymore for a lot of people. So I would encourage that. Gina says, what if I sign up for the 3-day program that starts in February and now want to go with Jumpstart? Can I get this exchange? You can't. What I would say is reach out to our team. You should have an email from the school if you signed up, and see what they can do to look at your situation. And I mean, one thing that's for sure is that boot camp's actually included in Jumpstart. So there might be something that they can do to kind of like adjust that if you want to be in Jumpstart, and then you can still attend boot camp in February. So cool. Is there a live brand camp coming up? There's not. We don't have a plan on doing brand camp again, because all of the material, everything that we do, we record in HD, and it's available. Really, we have everything in most cases, any program that we do, available within like 24 to 48 hours. So all of brand camp's actually there. We don't have plans to redo it because all the material is there. And so if you want it, you can get it inside of Jumpstart, and you'll have instant access to it when you enroll. You are welcome. All right, everyone. Well, this was a great time, huh? This is a good Q&A, lots of great questions and everything else. Let me just remind you, the link to get more information about Jumpstart and enroll in 90 seconds is available inside of the description of this video. This was also, if any of you got in late, yes, the replay will be available immediately. I think it takes Facebook and YouTube just like seconds to process, and you can jump in and get it. If you want to get trained and certified, the Life Coach certification course that's a part of Jumpstart is self-paced. You can begin today. you can knock out your certification. Also, if you're part of Jumpstart, you can be a part of our next boot camp, which is February 11th through the 13th. It's normally $247, but we actually put it as a part of Jumpstart. We spend an entire live weekend, 7 sessions, where we walk you through every part of coaching, all of the coaching competencies. You see coaching role play demos, all of those things over the course of the weekend, full of a lot of Q&As and a lot of information that we really don't actually cover in our life coach certification course. You get that as a part of Jumpstart. You get Brand Camp, which is about 13 hours that is just specifically focused on marketing, messaging, and building out your website and every aspect of marketing, writing emails, writing sales pages, web design, all of that. That's actually included. Our Jumpstart program, that's about 40 core modules. That is the A to Z on how to develop your business, and a live group coaching call every Wednesday where we go live with our students. Of course, you can also watch those on replay, and we have like several years of those worth of replays from all of those calls. All of this, $97 a month with a 3-month minimum commitment. And you can cancel anytime after those 3 months are up. Listen, I appreciate you guys all immensely. Have a great rest of your week and take care.